Hello everyone and welcome back to the tournament where players play better chess with mere minutes on the clock than you do over the course of a classical game. That's just how good these guys are. And we have a beautiful game between the leader of the tournament. He's been leading for 4 days now, 3 days of rapid, 1 day of blitz, and now we're in the final day of the tournament. Leading by a huge point margin going into this round. This is round 20. I think he's up in the lead by some 4.5 points. And, taking that into consideration, you'd probably think, okay, maybe he'll take it easy. Maybe he'll, get a nice quiet draw. This is Aravindh Chithambaram, obviously also having a great tournament. He's also one of the contenders that is fighting for first place. And he definitely wants to take Fedoseev down. But you'd only think that. So let's see what happened in this one. So Vladimir with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 by Aravindh, bishop to g5. Vladimir goes for the Trompovsky, pawn to d5, e3, and pawn to e6. So this is the standard Trompovsky, where you can continue many different ways, but here we already reach very, very seldom played territory, and that is knight to d2. And now, interestingly, I have found a game where it's almost non-existent in top-level chess, but I have found a game where Aravindh actually played knight to d2 against Levon Aronyan. It was played last year in Chennai Masters, and their game ended in a draw. So maybe Fedoseev is testing how well Aravindh has really prepared this. But also, that was classical event. This is now Blitz. So, also, interesting. So let's see what happens. In that game that we've discussed, they went differently, but here they already deviate with pawn to b6. And here there are some games where c3 and bishop to d3 were played, knight g2 f3 is played, and it is not as of move 5 that we have a completely new game. So something like a combination of a Trompovsky and a London system, but it's, still main theory, the classical defense of the Trompovsky. We have bishop to b7, bishop to b5 with check, pawn to c6, and bishop back to d3. We have bishop to e7, pawn to c4, and knight b to d7. So it's very natural. White has pieces on very, very natural squares. Bishop g5, bishop d3, queen is coming to c2, you're castling, the rook is coming to c1, and black also doing the usual stuff. Bishop b7, the rook is coming to c8, and in that right moment in time, you're hoping to execute c5, and if you can play c5 and you're not worse, then you're happy with black. That's basically the idea. So here we have castles kingside, pawn to c5, as white did play some moves that maybe were not engine approved. Black can execute c5 so quickly and not feel bad about it. C captures on d5, e captures with d captures on c5, b captures, and queen to c2. Nicely developing the queen. Also, there's a pawn on c5, so you're not worried about rook to c8. And c4, well, it can be played. Bishop to f5, it's also a nice square for the bishop, so you're not really... it's not bad for white at all. So after queen to c2, we have castles kingside by Aravindh, and now rook 8 to d1. Pawn to g6, also limiting the power of the queen bishop battery, bishop back to b5. And although you're never really interested in trading bishop for knight, it's a thing in chess where it's always better for you to have the tension over your opponent. So the bishop can always capture the knight, and this bishop can always capture the knight, whereas the knights cannot capture the bishops. And your opponent will have to take this into consideration. Maybe it will burn, 1 second off of his clock on each move, but that's, 1 extra second burned. We have rook to c8, queen to a4, now putting pressure on that a7 pawn. Also, if this knight moves, this knight will be in danger. And, there's really no reason for Aravindh not to play pawn to a6. Okay, either the bishop goes back and then you gain more space with c4, or you just trade everything, captures, and black is now very, very happy. But this is what I meant when I said that, Aravindh also just wants to beat Fedoseev, even though he has been undefeated now for this is the 20th game that he's playing. He plays a very different move. Plays knight b6, attacks the queen and invites queen captures on a7. And, it would all make sense if the bishop was defended. Then, of course, you capture rook to a8, traps the queen. But he said, all right, maybe it's not much of a position. It's... time is pretty much equal. We can just go for a nice easy draw here if Vladimir wants it. Either he goes back with the queen and then, I'm just better, or he captures and then it's gonna be a draw. And what I mean by this is that after queen captures on a7, rook to a8 attacks the queen, he sacrifices the bishop, and now rook to b8. And it seems that really there's nothing better for Vladimir than to accept a draw, because wherever the queen goes, you're just gonna follow it. Rook c8, rook b8, rook a8, rook b8, rook c8, and so on. So here queen to c6 and the rook to c8, where probably queen to b7 was the move that Aravindh expected, but it is not the move that Vladimir played. I'm pretty sure you guys know what he played. He's already up a piece, so you know the move is basically screaming to be played. You know, you don't even have to pause the video. I know you guys are looking at it. Of course, knight to e5. And this is a position you don't want to be in. You already gave up a piece. While you can capture your opponent's queen, you can see once the knight comes here, we'll be putting pressure on the bishop. The bishop pair is fully operational, and you know, it could go either way, but you can feel it that this is not what you want to be doing. So, okay, rook captures on c6. It is the only move. There's no other way to play it. We have knight captures with an attack on the queen and the bishop, queen to c7, and now pawn to e4. Where you are sort of inviting d captures, but that would only favor white. If d captures on e4, you're going to play maybe even knight captures, or you're going to prepare rook f to e1, then knight captures on e4. Also, the bishop on e7 is weak, so this is all very, very good for white. So instead, Aravindh played king to g7, we have rook f to e1, and now knight to g4, threatening queen captures on h2. And again, you might think, well, okay, let's you know, stop that, but no, there's a free bishop on e7. So bishop captures on e7, just winning material. Inviting queen captures on h2. We could even make this a thumbnail. I mean, there are so many great positions here that you know, deserve to be a thumbnail. But okay, you know, we'll consider it. Queen captures on h2. King to f1, and now while you could go queen to h1 check, it doesn't really do all that much. You could give a nice check, king to e2, you could capture the pawn on g2, but then bishop captures on c5, guards on f2, and there's no good way to open up the position. Whatever you do. Also, the knight on b6 is hanging, so this is just terrible for black. So after king f1, rook to e8 is played. Now, of course, if the bishop moves, somehow the file opens up, the e2 square is not available to the white king, then queen to h1 will be checkmate. So bishop captures on c5, adding more support here, knight to c4, and now before capturing on c4, as you really don't want so many attackers around your white king, even if, you know, black hasn't really planned anything, something might, you know, turn out. So here, bishop to d4 check, pawn to f6, and you just eliminate it. With what? Or rather, what with? The bishop or the knight? In the game, knight captures on c4 was played. You could also play bishop captures, but he prefers to have the light square bishop on the board. D captures and pawn to f3. And this is just really, really bad for black. The pawn structure is immaculate. The bishop coming to g1 will stop all threats coming from the black queen, and there's no way to break through here. f5 impossible. The bishop is still on d4, so black is you know, just looking for a move to play, basically. We have knight to h6, bishop to g1, attacks the queen, queen to f4, and now knight to d4, eyeing that e6 square. So you know the bishop to c4 is coming, knight to e6 is impossible to stop. We have rook to e5, bishop captures on c4, and now queen to h4, getting out of that nasty fork, but still knight to e6 check is the best move. We have knight to e6 check, and now what do you do here? In the game, rook captures on e6 was played, but I will show you why. It seems like, okay, maybe you can survive this, but there's no way you survive this. For example, after king to f7, there doesn't seem to be a good discovery here, but you can just play rook to d7 check, and after king to e8, you will give another check, and after king to f7, rook ed1. Now you're threatening checkmate, and once black creates an escape route for the king, you will go rook 1 to d7 check, king to g6, now rook to g8 with check, where, okay, the knight could capture it, but if the knight captures it, then knight to f8 check, king to h5, rook captures on h7 check. Only move, as this is covered, is knight to h6, and now bishop to f7 will be checkmate. And that is only if after rook to g8 check you captured the rook. You also don't have to do that. You could start running away, but now again, something like knight g7 check, king to g6, now a knight f5 check, nicely connecting with the black queen, and also after king to h5, you can even you know, fully humiliate black by not capturing the queen, you can just capture on h7 and say, okay, next move I deliver checkmate, you resign here, or you know, you play some silly moves that don't really make sense. But yeah, you're dead lost here. So after 96 check, Aravindh has to give up the rook, which is bad as you're already down too much material. Rook captures, bishop captures, and now pawn to g5. We have rook to d7 with check, king to g6, and now pawn to g4, cutting off any escape route the king might have in mind. And also just bishop to f5 check is coming next, so there's not much you can do here. Queen h3 check was played, king to e2, queen to g2 with check, bishop to f2, and here Aravindh did play queen to h2, but it was also in this position on move 37 that Aravindh Chithambaram resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. I could ask you to pause the video and try to complete the game, but really every move just wins here. You could try it and try to find the cleanest way to win if you guys want. If not, I'm just going to show it to you, so you know. I always give a few seconds, you know, for you guys to make a decision whether you want to pause or not. Some of you think that's weird. I don't know. I think that's, you know, the right thing to do. But okay, bishop to f5 check. And that's it. The king has no squares. You have to capture with the knight. G captures on f5 with check. Now, if you go to h5, of course, rook captures on h7 is mate in 1. And if you go to h6, then look at this. Rook to g1. And what does black play? There's not a good move you can make. If you play pawn to g4, of course, rook captures on g4. That's the reason behind rook to g1. If this was a, you know, problem at some sort of a solving competition, rook to g1 would be the difficult move to find from that position where I ask you to calculate. But point is that after any move, let's say queen h3, now I just play bishop to c5, as you can now move the bishop, and you're threatening bishop to f8 check, and rook captures on h7. And that's it. One more check can be given. Queen h2 check, king d3. And now once black makes any move, doesn't really matter. It's a matter of bishop f8 check, kicking the king away from the defense of the h7 pawn. And now rook captures on h7 will be a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. So yeah, I mean, what a fighter, what an incredible fighting spirit here by Vladimir Fedoseev. Here, this, you know, beautiful knight to b6 move first, inviting queen captures on a7. And look at the time spent, 2 minutes 52 seconds. He spent 10 seconds deciding on this, and after rook to a8, he instantly captured on b7. So he saw all of this within those 10 seconds, or maybe even prior to that. That's how good these guys are, and that's why I say, you know, they will play a better 3-minute, 5-minute game than you will a classical one, you know, or me, or pretty much anyone else who is, you know, a casual viewer. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Beautifully done by Vladimir Fedoseev. And just the moment before I started recording, I went on to check the results, and even though he was undefeated for 20 games, this was the 20th game played in the tournament after 3 days of rapid and 1 full day of blitz. He lost to the local hero Young Krzysztof Duda, and he suffered his first loss to Duda. Still haven't seen the game. If it's a cool game, we could also show that one. So yeah, stay tuned. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Crash BPS1, Magician Chess, Sandal No Less, E1 Check, and Only Bullet for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And it's, as our good friend Mikhail Tal once said, you know, to play for a draw with any rate, at any rate with white is a crime against chess. Well, with the black pieces, maybe it's not a crime against chess, but if you play for a draw, you might lose. And here Aravindh was basically inviting a draw with that bishop sacrifice, you know, wanted a repetition with the queen. Vladimir said, not today. See you soon.